what's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we're going to be watching a video titled Architect Breaks Down the Evolving Skyscrapers of New York. If you've been watching me, you probably know that I've kind of developed a fear of skyscrapers since starting this channel because I've never thought about it, but looking at them on these videos, they're tall. They're like tall, like taller than what I probably can't even imagine in my head, and I don't even think I could go up one, let alone live in one. So I'm really intrigued to see how architecturally they're made. So maybe this will make me feel either a little bit more at peace or do the opposite. I don't know yet. So without further ado, let's see what this video is about.
And I've been an architect in New York City for over 35 years. Today,
excuse you.
Hi, I'm Michael Weitzner, and I've been an architect in New York City for over 35 years. Today, we're going to look at some of the most common styles of skyscrapers that make up the New York City skyline. First up, the most iconic skyscraper in the world, the Empire State Building. So what I love about this image is actually the crown. The Empire State Building has this amazing antenna that sits upon this spire, that sits upon this stepped pyramid.
I don't know, guys, if you've seen the video of, I don't know where they were, but there's this couple who like, was it the Empire State Building? Probably not. But they climbed on top of like this tall building, and they have a little documentary that I don't know what it's called, but there's people who like climb these buildings. That is freaking wild. Like, oh.
Which sits upon this stone crown. That antenna and spire were intended to have dirigibles or blimps, more to them. That actually never worked out. And you can see the spire is supported by these four sort of brackets, which are actually appear to be wings, making the building soar. And the other thing that's so remarkable about the Empire State Building is just its sheer verticality. It's super tall, it's 102 stories tall, but what really strikes us is how the architects from two different scales wanted to reinforce that height. They created this recessed channel that breaks it up into three different pieces and makes it feel even taller. Those spring from the required setbacks down below. So New York City is full of these setback towers, and the Empire State Building is the ultimate and tallest expression of that kind of building. So in 1960, New York City introduced a new set of zoning laws that required tall buildings to set back after a certain height. So they could go up along the street wall, and then they had to...
See, there's a reason why they require this, for example, because obviously the buildings built before that weren't as stable, and that scares the living crap out of me. And also I've heard that some of these like skyscrapers, like they kind of like move in the air. Humans were meant to be on ground.
Push back, and then they could go up again and push back again, so that they never punctured the sky exposure plane. And the Empire State Building had to conform to that. The Empire State Building sets back after 125 feet above the sidewalk, and then later it sets back again because the size of the floor plate was limited by zoning as well. And
I know, right, girl? It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. And people live there. Yeah. Up, all the way up there. Yeah. Well, this is like an office building. It's pretty crazy. Okay, thank you for your insights. Thank you. That's enough. Thank you very much. No. Thank you.
these setback buildings were known as wedding cake buildings because they had different tiers like a wedding cake. So you could see examples of this setback tower all over the city. In fact, there's a number of them even in this photograph. Right here, you could see the Con Edison building in the distance, and you could see the New York Life building over here. And in fact, you could see more recent examples like the World Financial Center here along the Hudson River. So let's get a closer look at these setbacks and look at it in more detail. So this is what I noticed right away, that this entire building has...
What a beautiful photograph, by the way. Like, this is a very nice shot.
There's a whole motif of vertical lines. The Empire State Building is an Art Deco style building. And it has some flourishes at the top of these window bays where you could see repeating motifs. And then this is the bottom of that great channel that we saw in the long shot. So what I really like about this section of the building at all these setbacks is that they almost look like separate buildings. It's like the architects created their own skyline. This appears as a building, this appears as a building, and another one. Each one of these buildings shares a vocabulary, but uses it in a very different way. This piece here is made up of double bays of windows with a flourish at the top between the windows. And then here, it's single bays of windows. And then it turns the corner and the centerpiece becomes a double. And then here it's doubles again with the same flourish below. So at first glance, it all looks the same, but as you look closer, you realize actually they're all a little different, and it creates its own sort of city within one single building. And the building was so tall and contains so many offices, it almost is its own kind of city. So let's jump ahead 21 years and look at a new type of skyscraper.
That is crazy. Like, there's so much space in that. Like, I don't know, but there could be a whole population living in there.
Glass curtain wall. So within this one image, actually, you see examples of many types of buildings. For instance, you see an old-fashioned masonry building by McKim, Mead & White. You see the next iteration of building, which is the setback skyscraper with its verticals and its spandrels. And then you see the great glass corporate tower, which became the symbol of corporate America all over cities across America. So the Lever House is a 21-story building completed in 1952, and it's a glass curtain wall. The exterior skin of the building is no longer punched windows, but it's all glass, and that glass just hangs like a curtain off of the existing structure.
I've never seen office buildings like this here, because they're just like skyscrapers really isn't a thing where I've lived. But this reminds me of like the movies where someone like pushes someone off the office window and then, yeah. But really cool looking. Again, I just don't trust it. It's glass. Scary. It seems fragile, you know?
Structure. So on the Empire State Building, we saw punched windows, which was a series of vertical columns enclosed in masonry. And then there'd be a spandrel between these. And that spandrel is actually where the floor and the ceiling on the floor below it meet. Quite often, that spandrel would have some sort of design on it. And then there'd be another spandrel. And then the window sits between that. But with a curtain wall building, it's totally different. You don't read these columns. You don't read this spandrel, at least not in this sort of way. In a curtain wall building, it's all glass. And it's just a series of mullion. And even the spandrel is made out of glass. So that the horizontal is also glass. And then this is what we call the vision glass, or the glass that you can look out of. And so the whole expression of the building—
Where are the walls?
—reads as one great wrapper. Designed by Gordon Bunshaft of the famous firm Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, or SOM. What
Gordon, you is crazy, my dude.
Bunshaft did, which is so unique, is he took the mass of the building and he turned it perpendicular to the street. And then the other thing he did was he sat it on this platform, or this plinth, and he raised that platform up on pilotis, or columns. Pilotis is the term that Le Corbusier used and that nearly every modernist architect followed. What this platform does is it actually holds the street wall so that you still have a sense of the edge of the street. In this case, it's Park Avenue. But at the same time, he sort of created this space, or this void, along 53rd Street, of which the tower sits in. So although the Lever House is only 21 stories tall, it makes a very big impact along the street. One of the things that makes this building unique is that it's one of the first modern glass skyscrapers built specifically for a corporation, and that's the Unilever Corporation, hence the name Lever House. And this form of glass curtain wall became very popular among corporate entities, and you see them all over New York, partly because New York is full of corporate headquarters for many, many companies.
It looks incredible. Like, it looks incredible. It looks beautiful, but oh, no, that's way too tall. I didn't know I have a fear of heights until I started watching these videos.
So the glass skyscraper became symbolic of corporate America. The idea of glass enclosed skyscrapers had been around since the 1920s. Mies van der Rohe, the great modernist architect, had done many studies of them in the 1920s. Now let's take a look at a building that inspired a new zoning law, The Seagram Building by Mies van der Rohe. So now we've jumped ahead 6 years. The Seagram Building, which is 38 stories tall, was completed in 1958. It was built for the Seagram Company. This building is diagonally across the street from the Lever House. So here's everything that jumps out at me. He creates this beautiful 90-foot deep plaza and this very minimal entrance overhang, and then puts I-beam on the exterior of the building in this vertical configuration. And what those do is those express the structure within, but they're actually not structural. They're actually ornamental. His idea was to show the verticality of the...
Okay, but where is the structure then? Because all I see is a couple of beams down there holding up this whole building. No. I do not trust that.
Building and how the building is built. And they're beautifully detailed. And then this bronze tinted building and this bronze clad metal all work together to form this really refined and elegant monolith. So although this perfect rectangular monolith faces the street.
Like, look at that. Look at that. Do you actually trust these poles to hold all of this weight up? Ugh. I already get like sometimes panic because I live in a building and I live somewhere in the middle of the building, and I'm just thinking there's like so many sofas on top of me, so many beds on top of me that weigh a lot, so many kitchen utilities. Like, how is this building holding up the weight? I don't know. I don't understand. I'm scared.
Behind it, there are multiple forms. There's a spine that runs along the whole height of the building, and then coming off of that spine are two symmetrical step little buildings, of which the famous Four Seasons restaurant was contained in. So hiding behind that is a small little setback tower. So Mies van der Rohe, being who he was, there was no way he was going to design a conventional setback tower. He figured out a way to build a monolithic rectangular form that sets back from the street and doesn't puncture the sky exposure plane, and also creates a new kind of urban space. And that urban space is this wonderful plaza at the front of the building. So before, as in the Empire State Building, where the building took up the entire footprint of the site, the Seagram Building steps back and leaves part of the footprint empty and creates an urban plaza. So this building achieved what the 1916 zoning law set out to do, which was to let sunlight penetrate down to the sidewalk. And it did it in such a successful way that the new zoning laws that came in 1961 gave bonuses to encourage the alternate setback and create these plaza towers that had these public spaces that were privately owned. And many more of these plaza towers came into being because of it. So let's jump ahead 50 years and take a look at the New York Times building. So by the early 2000s, the New York Times had outgrown its facilities on West 43rd Street, just off of Times Square, which was named after the paper. The new New York Times building from 2007. It does a few things that are very unique. It wraps the entire building in these horizontal ceramic rods, which form this veil that filters the sunlight and reduces the solar heat gain. The architect still includes the crown of the skyscraper, but he does it in a really modern way by bringing the veil of the ceramic rods all the way up. And the other thing he does is he expresses the verticality by pulling in the sides of the building and making them narrower. It breaks down.
I don't want to be mean, but in my opinion, only in my honest opinion, this just looks like a building that is not finished and it still has, you know, like the thing on it. I said it. I stayed an opinion, okay? Come get me.
On the form a little and makes it appear even taller. And then the other thing is he reveals the structure. He peels back some of that veil and he reveals the actual structure. And it creates this really modern, high-tech, forward-looking building. And you could see how much it stands out from the rest of its neighbors. It is 52 stories tall and one of the tallest buildings in Manhattan. So this building was designed by Renzo Piano, who is known as sort of a high-tech architect. He designed the Pompidou Center in Paris, along with Richard Rogers, who was another high-tech architect, and Norman Foster. And what they always like to do is they sort of show the components of the building on the outside. Other examples of express structure in New York are 3 World Trade Center by Richard Rogers, or the Hearst Building by Norman Foster.
See, that is cool. That's cool.
Let's get a
other
closer look
one?
at those ceramic rods and how the structure is expressed. I mean, the first thing is they still employ the same masthead title of the paper, which I love. So you take this really old Gothic typeface and you put it on this super modern building. The juxtaposition is fantastic. And you could see close up these ceramic rods, and you could see the windows beyond, and you could see the X-bracing that stiffens the entire structure and makes it solid. And at the same time, he holds back the ceramic rods or the veil on the front of the building and reveals the corner to create these wonderful corner offices. The New York Times building, it's yet another architectural corporate expression. So where Mies was taking these I-beams, expressing the structure as ornament, it wasn't actual structure. In fact, Mies took these I-beams and put them on every single bay, whether there was a column there or not, to give this complete rhythm and monolithic facade. What Piano is doing here at the New York Times is he's revealing the actual structure in a very ornamental way by saying, look, isn't the actual structure that holds up this building beautiful in its own right?
Putting the actual structure there to get all the sunlight and the weather and the storms and the rain and then what? That's scary. I don't know. I don't like either one of these. This is there. These buildings are. I don't understand. I just don't understand how.
Right. And what Piano does here that I find really interesting is that he takes that veil that he created to shield the sun, and he uses that same structure and that same cloak to create the roof parapet and conceal the mechanical units. And he also includes on the roof this giant aerial, which I think says a lot about the New York Times. I think the New York Times is saying, although we began as a newspaper, we, however, are looking towards the future. And this huge antenna signals that idea. Next, let's look at a totally new kind of skyscraper, the super tall.
Okay.
This is 432 Park Avenue, which sits along 57th Street. And what makes this building unique is not only that it's...
You could not get me in that. Even if you paid me, I promise, you could pay me $10,000 to go on the top level of this building. I would not do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. That is crazy tall. I wouldn't know. Like a maximum, maybe, you know, this building here looks pretty sturdy. I could maybe like very slight, maybe go up this building and check out the views and then get back down as fast as I can. This, nah.
85 stories tall, or that each floor plate is only 8,000 square feet. But in a sense, it's actually 7 separate 12-story towers stacked on top of one another with 2 stories of mechanical floor between each one. So what's quite amazing about this building is the slenderness of this building. It's almost like a spike sticking out of the ground, and it's completely changed the skyline of New York. So this is just one of a few super talls that have sprung up recently along 57th Street. The others being the Nordstrom Tower at Broadway, the Steinway Tower close to 7th Avenue, and 157th Street by Christian Portzenpark, the great French architect,
Beautiful, but no.
between 5th and 6th Avenue. So what makes this building unique? It is so tall and so thin, it almost defies explanation as to how it stands up. So
Yeah, exactly. So do you think I would feel secure living there? There is no way. Whoever wants to live in a building like that doesn't care about life, or I don't know, there's something wrong, because that's like, that defies gravity nearly. I would not trust that.
now let me tell you how it does stand up. It's not a commercial building, it's actually a residential building. And it's not built out of steel, it's actually built out of concrete, the traditional way of structuring a residential building. And that's because steel buildings require beams. But to get maximum floors and maximum floor height, concrete is used because of flat slabs where no beams are required. What that flat slab means is you don't have to contend with beams. Typically in pre-war buildings, there's actually a beam between the column. You see that in the rooms, and the beam runs along the ceiling. With flat slab buildings starting in like the 1950s, no beams are required. The slab actually spans between columns without any beam. Also notable is that it sits on prime real estate. It's on Park Avenue. It's on 57th Street, which is known as Billionaire's Row. It sits so close to the park, it gets views not only of the park, but of all the counties surrounding Manhattan. It's called Billionaires Row because that's who inhabits these buildings. Nobody else.
No, not even being a billionaire could. Okay, if someone was like, hey, I'm going to give you this apartment in this area, and it's like that, okay, I'll take it. Obviously, I'd take it, like, gladly. But no, could I live there though? I don't know. I would have to have like my windows closed the whole day. That's so scary. Who would like willingly want to live there? I don't get it. That's like living on a boat. Like you just have to live on constant stress.
Could afford to actually buy these apartments. And because of that, a lot of these buildings remain empty, even the ones that are purchased.
And also, how long does it take for you to get down and up the building? Like, it'll take a whole day to get the elevator down. If you, like, call the elevator up to your apartment when the sun is coming out, and when you get down, it's nighttime.
Remain empty most of the year because the people who own them have so many other homes. It's just unfortunate that with the shortage of housing in New York, all these apartments sit empty most of the year. So what I really like about this building as a piece of architecture is its simplicity. There's no ornamented crown at the top. There's no ornamented base at the bottom. It's all midsection. The other thing that I think is terrific about this building is that this grid that the windows sit within is actually the structure of the building exposed. So let's take a look at the structure that holds this building up. So what I really like about this building, as I said before, is its simplicity. This grid is actually a concrete frame that the windows are set into. And this concrete frame is actually what holds up the building. So this concrete frame is the same on all four sides, and it forms this sort of perforated tube. And then within that tube, and you could see it at these open floors here, there's another tube that's actually the core of the building that contains the stairs and the elevators. And that's also made out of concrete. And the flat slabs of...
Like, can you see these little parts on the concrete where you can see that the, like, slabs kind of, like, separate? Oh, that's just so creepy to me. I don't know.
The floor connect from the outside tube to the inside tube. And that's how the building stands up. But it's so tall that the top of the building, it actually sways as if it were a mast or a giant flagpole. Yeah. And to
No.
counteract that, they use something called a mass damper, which is basically just a giant weight on a spring that moves out of sequence with the movement of the building, and it counteracts that movement and tries to stabilize it. So essentially, you don't get seasick when you're at the top of the building. So before, where buildings were made out of steel, iron workers would grab each beam, would be brought to them on a crane, and they would bolt them together or then weld them. Here, you take concrete, which starts out as a liquid and gets poured into a form. But it's so tall, you have to pump it all the way up to the top of the building and then get it into the form. But the problem with these buildings is that there's been a lot of reports that because the buildings are so tall and the stresses on them are so great, a lot of the pipes have cracked and a lot of the elevator shafts have deformed, and there's been a lot of maintenance issues with these towers. Being the biggest and the best is a very New York thing, but that's sort of the price you pay when you push the limits. So those are some of the most common types of skyscrapers in New York City. Let me know what other skylines we should explore in the comments below.
I would literally rather live in a floating house than that. I would rather live under the ocean, literally in a bunker, than up there. That is so scary. This definitely didn't give me any peace whatsoever. But very great video. I loved it. Thank you guys for joining me for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've ever lived in a skyscraper before. How was it? Do you forget about it? Or or were you scared? Was it swaying? What happened? And yeah, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video.